Good morning and thank you for staying with us on The Weekend Show. You're now watching the Climate Chat segment of The Weekend Show, and this is where we get to talk about how climate affects inequalities or worsens inequalities across the board. We are often talking about the problems that climate change causes here, from flooding to community disasters, and also how it affects women and persons living with disabilities. But what exactly do we want in return? What do we mean when we say that we want an inclusive response? And that will be the conversation on the Climate Chat this morning. My name is Zainab Aditola, and with me this morning is Jennifer Bomger, live in the studio. She'll be talking to us very briefly about these issues. And I really want us to start the conversation from what current responses from the government looks like when they are responding to climate disasters.
All right, thank you so much. So usually from the government, they send in early warnings, sometimes in case there are early warnings, and these early warnings are sent out. And I think they have agencies across the state, such as the State Emergency Response, and most times they're doing post responses, because what we should be doing more should be the response, that's early signs, and we get the early signs and then we respond before this disaster. But most times what we are getting is the post-disaster, which is most times the evacuation or relocation to IDP camps. But I think the government is also putting in place measures that can help reduce these disasters. But, you know, it's something that has to do with everybody, not just the government. So sometimes even when the early warnings go out there, people are reluctant. People wait until when the disaster hits for them to start putting in the measures that, the appropriate measures that they can put. And then I think the government is also setting up policies that are going to preserve the forest and are also going to preserve the greenland area. So I think the government is also doing quite a lot, but people, individuals and community members also have a role to play when it comes to these disasters.
You talk about the government doing quite a lot, at least post-disaster, in evacuating people, relocating them, working with them in IDP camps and all that. But let's examine this response. How gender inclusive are these responses? Or how inclusive even, you know, generally, be it to children, be it to women, be it to persons living with disabilities? How inclusive are these responses that government carries out in affected communities?
Okay, so as climate advocates, climate justice advocates, we keep advocating that most of these responses are not gender responsive. So when we talk about these solutions or these climate solution designs being gender responsive, we are asking the IDP camps that government have set up for victims of flooding, what is the proximity of this camp to the nearest clinic? How can women who need to access sexual reproductive health services get access to the nearest clinic if they are in this camp? How is the road like? Is there any way they can get their post and antenatal services? If a woman needs to deliver, how do they access the hospital? The girls there, how are they getting water for their menstrual hygiene? Are there safe spaces for them to change their period pads? How about persons with disabilities? Are these camps accessible to them? So most times we're advocating that instead of making this decision holistically, why not bring in all groups involved in this decision design, like bringing the women. Include women at the design making, because sometimes the men may not think about the needs of women to access services like the SRH or services when they are in this camp.
This seems like a long-term advocacy here, and it would take some time to be able to get to that point where we have a response that is holistically gender inclusive. But in the short term, what are quick fixes? You know, that's my final question to you. What are quick fixes that we can explore to ensure that women, girls, you know, and also other vulnerable persons in these IDP camps and other communities affected by flooding have some sense of inclusion?
Okay, so in the very short term, I think what we can do is take most of our advocacy to the grassroots, because most times we're advocating at maybe state level and national level, and then these people who are the grassroots, they have no idea, and it is very, very immediate for them to even be aware of these issues, because they can be able to profile solutions that may necessarily not involve any finances. Some of them are basically ignorant of what is happening.
I mean, they have a better idea of the problems,
of the problem, because they are the ones experiencing this problem. So if we take our messages down to the grassroots, I think there are even solutions that are not even, that do not even have any financial implications that these people can bring up. But because they are ignorant, they don't even know why we keep talking about climate change or why it is even happening.
So that falls on the government and also climate justice advocates like yourself. Yeah?
Myself and everyone else, everyone else out there. People are engaging in deforestation ignorantly because they don't know. So if we keep telling them cutting down these trees will benefit you immediately, but in the long term, the impact of you cutting down this tree is heavier than whatever benefits you are getting now. So it falls on us, the government, and everyone else.
Thank you so much, Jennifer Abomge, for being our guest this morning, and also for being our guest on the Climate Chat segment for the month of October, sorry. It's been exciting having you chat about climate and gender advocacy all month. And that's it on the Climate Chat this morning. More exciting segments coming your way. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, stay tuned. My name is Zainab Adetola.